You know that gut punch moment when you find a crayon drawing in your husband's car that says, "I love you, Daddy," and realize you're not child-free by choice, you're just not his choice for motherhood? I'm Astrid Mercer, 34, real estate agent, wine enthusiast, and apparently the world's longest-running understudy in my own marriage. The leading lady? Some woman named Simone in Milwaukee who got the part I didn't even know I was auditioning for. Let me set the scene. It's a Friday afternoon in October, one of those perfect fall days in Naperville where the suburb looks like a Pottery Barn catalog threw up on reality. I'm detailing Otis's Tesla, because that's what good wives do, right? After another one of his architectural site visits to Milwaukee. 8 years of marriage, and apparently I've been playing house while he's been building an entirely different one, 2 states over. The drawing was wedged between the passenger seat and the center console. Standard kindergarten artwork. Stick figure dad holding hands with stick figure daughter, complete with a lopsided yellow sun and a house that defied all laws of physics and architecture. Ironic, considering my husband's profession. The signature at the bottom, written in that shaky 5-year-old scrawl. Love, Emma. Emma. Not Emily from accounting or Ellen, the client's kid. Emma. 5 years old according to the big clumsy number drawn next to her name. Here's where my brain started doing that fun thing where it performs calculations you don't want it to. Otis and I had been married for 8 years. We'd decided, mutually I thought, not to have children. We were the couple at Thanksgiving dinner who got the judgmental, "still no babies?" from his mother while we smiled and talked about our freedom to travel. Except Otis's travel apparently included regular trips to his second life. 5 years old. He'd been doing these Milwaukee trips for 6 years, every other weekend like clockwork. The Henderson Project, he'd say. Can't trust the contractors. Turns out the only thing he couldn't trust was himself around his project manager. When Otis walked into the garage and saw me holding that masterpiece, his face went through more color changes than a Pantone catalog. He literally took 2 steps backward, like the drawing was a loaded weapon. He cleared his throat. Did that thing where he adjusted his glasses even though they were already perfectly positioned. That's from a client's daughter, the Hendersons. Remember? I told you about their kid. She's adorable. Drew that after our last meeting. Must have fallen out of my briefcase. The lie came out so smooth, so practiced, that I almost believed it. Almost. Because in 8 years of marriage, I'd learned to read Otis Fletcher like a blueprint. And right now, every measurement was off. "That's so sweet," I said, matching his tone perfectly. Years of showing houses to difficult clients had taught me how to smile while internally screaming. "She must really like you." "Yeah, kids they connect with me, I guess." He laughed. Nervous, high-pitched. The same laugh he'd used when his mother asked why we weren't trying for babies at Christmas dinner last year. I should probably toss that, though. Weird to keep random kids' drawings, right? He reached for it. I pulled it back, still smiling my real estate agent smile, the one that closes deals and hides homicidal thoughts. "No, it's adorable. I'll keep it. Maybe frame it for your office." The color drained from his face again. That's not necessary, Astrid. Really. I insist." I tucked the drawing into my purse, right next to my phone. "I'm making chicken piccata tonight. Your favorite. Be ready by 7? He nodded, relieved, probably thinking he'd dodged the bullet. Poor, stupid Otis. He'd just handed me the ammunition. I'm not one of those women who immediately confronts. I'm not the throw his clothes on the lawn type or the scream and break dishes variety. I'm a real estate agent in Naperville's most competitive market. I close million-dollar deals with handshake agreements and strategic patience. I know how to play the long game. That night, over chicken piccata and a Pinot Grigio that cost more than it should, I watched my husband of 8 years talk about his day. The Henderson Project was coming along nicely. The drive back from Milwaukee was brutal as always. He asked about my open house in Lyle, complimented the seasoning on the chicken, scrolled through his phone during dinner like he always did. Normal. Everything perfectly, suffocatingly normal. Except I kept thinking about that drawing. About the name Emma. About 5 years, 6 trips to Milwaukee per month, 72 round trips per year. 6 years of every other weekend trips. Building a relationship I knew nothing about. About how many times I'd kissed him goodbye for those weekends. How many times I'd believed him. Monday morning, while Otis was at his downtown Chicago office, I did what any self-respecting woman with a substantial commission check and growing suspicions would do. I hired a private investigator. Not just any PI. Marcus Webb, the guy who'd helped 3 of my clients catch their spouses hiding assets during divorce proceedings. The man had a 98% success rate and a retainer that would make most people wince. I didn't wince. I wrote the check. I need everything, I told him in his office in Schaumburg, sliding the drawing across his desk. This Emma, whoever she is, where she lives, who her mother is, every detail about my husband's Milwaukee trips for the past 6 years. Marcus looked at the drawing, looked at me and nodded. How fast do you want this? Yesterday. Give me a week. If there's something to find, I'll find it. He found it in 4 days. The manila envelope arrived via courier on Friday morning, exactly 1 week after I'd found the drawing. I waited until Otis left for another Milwaukee site visit before opening it. Poured myself a glass of wine. 10 a.m. Might be early for most people, but normal operating hours went out the window the moment I found evidence of my husband's side quest. Inside, photographs, bank statements, phone records, a paper trail so detailed that Marcus must have worked around the clock. And there she was. Simone Laurent, 32, project manager for a Milwaukee-based construction firm. Pretty in that effortless way that made me hate her on principle. But here's the kicker. The detail that made this whole situation cross from tragic into absolutely cosmically absurd. Simone didn't know Otis was married. To her, they were a committed couple, practically married, according to the testimony Marcus had gathered from her friends. They'd even had a commitment ceremony in Vegas 3 years ago, some symbolic beach thing with an Elvis impersonator that wasn't legally binding, but sure felt real to Simone. Emma was theirs. 5 years old, kindergarten at Milwaukee Montessori, favorite color purple, allergic to strawberries. Otis had been playing daddy for 5 years, playing husband to Simone for 6, all while coming home to me every other week like nothing was wrong. The bank statements showed a second checking account I didn't know existed, child support payments, rent on a condo in Milwaukee's 3rd Ward, date nights at restaurants I'd never heard of. A whole entire life, funded by our joint finances, lived in a city 2 hours north. I sat there in our suburban kitchen, the one with marble countertops and a farmhouse sink that I'd specifically chosen, and laughed. Not a cute laugh. A slightly unhinged, wine-fueled, my life is a country song laugh. Because here's the thing about Otis Fletcher, successful architect, pillar of the Naperville community, member of the country club, volunteer at Habitat for Humanity. He'd engineered this double life with the same precision he used to design buildings. Every detail calculated, every alibi constructed, every weekend scheduled. And he would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for one meddling crayon drawing and a wife who knows how to read a paper trail. The question now wasn't whether to confront him. The question was how to make this hurt in a way he'd never forget. The thing about discovering your husband has a whole second family is that suddenly, every memory becomes a crime scene. I spent the weekend going through Marcus's file like it was the world's worst photo album. And let me tell you, retrospect is brutal. Remember that time Otis forgot our anniversary because he was stuck on site in Milwaukee? Yeah, according to his credit card statements, he was stuck at a restaurant called Harbor House, treating Simone to a $180 dinner. Same night. Same time I was eating Chinese takeout alone, telling myself that career-driven men sometimes have their priorities confused. Turns out his priorities were crystal clear. I just wasn't one of them. The file Marcus compiled was 3 inches thick. 3 inches. This man had documented a double life with the dedication of a true professional. And honestly, if the situation weren't soul-crushing, I'd be impressed by Otis's organizational skills. There were photos of Otis at Emma's kindergarten graduation last May. The same week he told me he had food poisoning and couldn't make it to my company's awards dinner where I was being recognized as top agent. He looked perfectly healthy in those photos, beaming like a proud father, Emma in a tiny cap and gown, Simone kissing his cheek. I won that award without him there. Gave a speech about balancing career and marriage, about having a supportive partner. 47 people clapped. The irony could choke a horse. There were bank statements showing regular transfers to S. Laurent labeled as household expenses. Our household expenses, apparently financing his other household. The mental math was staggering. $63,000 over 6 years. $63,000 of our money. My commissions, my 70-hour work weeks, paying for his side quests' groceries, utilities, and preschool tuition. The phone records were my favorite, though. Favorite, in the way a root canal is your favorite dental procedure. Every call labeled Henderson Construction in his phone? Actually, Simone. Every text about project delays, conversations about Emma's doctor appointments, every stuck in traffic, be home late, tucking his daughter into bed. One text exchange particularly stood out from 3 weeks ago. Otis. Can't wait to see you Friday, miss my girls. Simone. Emma drew you another picture. She wants to give it to you in person this time. Otis. Perfect. Maybe she should keep them with her, though. Don't want them getting lost. Oh, the irony. He'd literally told her not to send drawings with him. Emma must have snuck that one into his car when he wasn't looking. 5-year-olds, bless them, ruining their father's elaborate deception schemes since the dawn of time. But here's what really got me. What made me pour a second, then third glass of wine that Saturday afternoon? The holidays. Marcus had included copies of Otis's credit card statements going back 6 years. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter. The pattern was nauseating. He'd spend the actual holiday with me and his family in Naperville, playing dutiful husband and son. Then he'd drive to Milwaukee the next day with leftovers for the site workers and celebrate a second time with Simone and Emma. 2 Christmas mornings, 2 turkey dinners, 2 sets of I love you while opening presents. Last Thanksgiving, his mother had made some passive-aggressive comment about our empty nest, while Emma, his actual child, was probably sitting at another table, eating another turkey, thinking her daddy was a hero who worked so hard he barely had time to visit. I'd defended our choice not to have kids, smiled through the judgment, held Otis's hand under the table while he nodded supportively. He'd even jumped in. Astrid and I have talked about this extensively. We're happy with our choice. Our choice. Our choice. The man had a kindergartner stashing crayon drawings in his Tesla and was sitting there talking about our choice, like he wasn't actively building a second family structure every other weekend. And Simone. Poor, stupid Simone. Though honestly, my sympathy for her was limited. According to Marcus's interviews with her friends, she'd been telling people for 3 years that she and Otis were basically married. They'd done that Vegas ceremony on what was supposed to be a work conference. Elvis officiated. They had photos. She wore white. But here's the kicker. Legally, it meant nothing. Otis had been very careful about that. No marriage certificate, no legal binding, just enough commitment to keep her believing while maintaining his actual legal marriage to me. The compartmentalization was almost artistic. He had separate credit cards, separate phone for work that was actually Simone's line, even separate social media accounts. His Facebook was set to married to me, but his rarely used Instagram was full of mysterious shots that upon closer inspection were clearly Milwaukee landmarks. The 3rd Ward, Lake Michigan, places he'd never taken me but had apparently explored extensively with his other woman. Tuesday morning, Otis came home from his latest Milwaukee trip whistling. He kissed my forehead, asked what was for dinner, and mentioned he'd need to go back next weekend for final inspections. I smiled, handed him coffee, told him I'd make his favorite pot roast. "You're the best," he said, squeezing my shoulder. I looked at this man, 6'2", salt and pepper hair, glasses that made him look distinguished, wedding ring that apparently meant as much as a mood ring, and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger yet, not sadness. Just this bizarre, detached curiosity about how someone could split their conscience so neatly down the middle. "How's the Henderson project?" I asked, my voice honey-sweet. "Oh, you know, coming along. Should be wrapped up by end of month." "That's great, honey. You've been working on it for so long." "Yeah, 6 years. It's been a journey." He laughed. "But worth it. 6 years. A journey. Worth it. I wanted to throw the coffee pot at his head. Instead, I said, we should celebrate when it's done. Maybe invite the Hendersons over for dinner. I'd love to finally meet them and their daughter. Emma, right? He choked on his coffee. Actually choked. They're pretty private people. Not really the dinner party type. That's a shame. I bet Emma's adorable. His hand shook slightly as he set down his mug. Yeah, she's a cute kid. The thing about catching a liar is that once you know the truth, watching them scramble is almost entertaining. Almost. That afternoon, while Otis was at his Chicago office, I did what any modern woman scorned would do. I social media stalked the hell out of Simone Laurent. Her Facebook was private, but her Instagram was public. Big mistake, Simone. She had hundreds of photos. Emma at the zoo. Emma's first day of school. Emma's birthday parties. And in so many of them, carefully cropped or strategically angled, Otis. One photo from Emma's 5th birthday party last spring caught my attention. Emma blowing out candles, Simone behind her, and just barely in frame. Otis's hand, his distinctive silver watch visible. The caption, "My baby girl turns 5. So grateful for our little family." 47 comments, all from people congratulating Simone, calling Otis a great dad, saying how lucky Emma was. I'd spent that same weekend showing a $4 million property in Oak Brook. Closed the deal. Came home exhausted to an empty house because Otis was on site. He was on site, all right, at his daughter's birthday party, eating cake, playing proud father, living a whole entire life while I sold houses to fund it. The comments on Simone's posts were particularly enlightening. Her friends knew Otis. They'd met him dozens of times. They referenced inside jokes. One woman commented on a photo from last 4th of July, "Otis's grilling gets better every year." Last 4th of July, Otis had told me he was working. Said the holiday weekend was perfect for catching up without interruptions. I'd gone to my sister's barbecue in Schaumburg alone, made excuses about his demanding schedule, defended him to relatives who suggested he was taking advantage of my understanding nature. He'd been at a different barbecue, flipping burgers for his other family, building memories with his daughter while I built excuses for his absence. Every missed dinner, every canceled plan, every sorry work emergency, they were all recontextualized now. A highlight reel of my own stupidity playing on loop. But here's what killed me, what made me pour that 4th glass of wine. I'd been good to him. I'd been the cool wife, the understanding wife, the "my career is demanding too, so I get it" wife. I'd never nagged about his travel, never questioned his receipts, never demanded he choose between his career and our marriage, because I'd thought we were partners. I'd thought we were building something together. Turns out we were building something together. My humiliation and his exit strategy. Wednesday night, we had dinner with his parents at the country club, because nothing says functional marriage, like dining with in-laws who've been asking about grandchildren for 8 years, while your husband secretly has one in another state. Otis's mother, Patricia, brought it up again. Of course she did. "The Harrisons just announced they're expecting their 3rd grandchild," she said, her tone just sharp enough to draw blood. Must be nice. I smiled, drank my wine, felt Otis tense beside me. "That is nice for them," I said evenly. "I just think it's such a shame," Patricia continued, because she physically cannot read a room, "that you two decided against children. Otis would make such a wonderful father." Under the table, Otis squeezed my hand. Supportive husband, united front. I squeezed back, smiled at Patricia, and thought about how Otis was such a wonderful father that he'd spent last weekend at Emma's soccer game while I'd been covering an open house. "We're happy with our choice," Otis said, his standard line. His father nodded. "They're happy, Patricia. Leave it alone." But I couldn't leave it alone. Not anymore. Because sitting there, watching Otis play the devoted husband while his actual daughter was probably FaceTiming him later, asking when Daddy was coming back, it was too much. "Maybe someday," I heard myself say. Everyone looked at me. Otis's eyes widened. "Maybe someday we'll reconsider," I continued, my smile sharp enough to cut glass. "After all, life is full of surprises, isn't it, honey?" Otis's face did that color-changing thing again. Yeah," Sure. Surprises. Patricia lit up like a Christmas tree. Oh, Astrid, are you saying— I'm saying, I interrupted gently, that we never know what the future holds. Things change. People change. Sometimes you discover things about yourself, or others, that completely reshape your perspective. Otis excused himself to the bathroom, came back 10 minutes later, looking like he'd aged 5 years. The dinner ended. We drove home in silence. And I thought about Marcus's file sitting in my home office safe, just waiting for the right moment. Because here's the thing about revenge. It's not about striking fast. It's about striking precisely. And I was starting to form a plan that would make Otis wish he'd gotten food poisoning every single time he'd lied about it. The universe has a sick sense of humor. I discovered this exactly 1 week after the country club dinner, when I was going through our joint tax returns from the past 6 years. Because once you start pulling threads, the whole sweater unravels. There, buried in Schedule C deductions under business expenses for Otis's architectural firm, Milwaukee condo rental, utilities for said condo, and my personal favorite, dependent care expenses for one Emma Fletcher. Emma Fletcher, not Emma Laurent, Fletcher. Otis had been claiming his secret daughter as a dependent on our taxes. Our taxes. For 3 years. The child I supposedly didn't know existed was actively reducing our tax liability, and I'd been signing those returns like an idiot, trusting my husband when he said his accountant had handled everything. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my office chair. Then I called Marcus. How illegal is this? I asked, scanning the documents again. Claiming a dependent without your spouse's knowledge? Not technically illegal if you're the biological parent. Morally bankrupt? Absolutely. But here's what's interesting. I heard papers shuffling on his end. He listed the Milwaukee address as a business property. If he's been living there part-time with his other family, that's tax fraud. Personal use of a business deduction. How much trouble are we talking? IRS investigation kind of trouble. Penalties, back taxes, possible charges if they determine willful fraud. Could cost him his architectural license if it goes public. Character clause in the state board requirements. I smiled. Actually smiled. Not the real estate agent smile. A genuine, slightly unhinged smile that would have scared small children. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. I'm listening. I need Simone's contact information. Phone number, email, everything. And I need to know when Otis is planning his next Milwaukee trip. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time for a family reunion. The plan came together over the next few days with the same precision I used to stage multi-million-dollar properties. Every detail mattered, every angle calculated. First, I created a fake Facebook account under a generic name, Jessica Morrison, complete with stock photos and a plausible Chicago suburbs background. Took me 3 hours to make it look legitimate. Added mutual friends with Simone's public connections, joined Milwaukee parenting groups, liked local businesses. Then I sent Simone a message. Hi, I know this is random, but I work with Otis Fletcher, the architect. He mentioned you manage projects together. I'm planning a surprise celebration for him at Gibson's Steakhouse in Chicago on November 15th for his promotion to partner at the firm. Would love for his Milwaukee colleagues to join, especially since he talks about the team up there so much. Can I send you details? I held my breath for 2 days. Then, OMG, yes. Otis mentioned the partnership might be coming through. This is so sweet. I'll definitely be there. Should I bring Emma? He'd love to see her. My hands shook as I typed back. Absolutely. The more the merrier. It's at 7 p.m., semi-formal. Can't wait to meet you both. November 15th was our 8-year anniversary. The anniversary Otis had already made reservations for at Gibson's. I'd seen the confirmation email on his iPad last week. He'd planned a romantic dinner for 2. He was about to get a party for 4. But I wasn't done. Because if I was going nuclear, I was going full Oppenheimer. I called Otis's parents. Patricia, it's Astrid. I'm planning a surprise anniversary dinner for Otis at Gibson's on the 15th. Would you and Richard like to join us? Maybe invite some of his close friends from the firm? Patricia nearly burst into tears. Oh, Astrid, that's so thoughtful. Of course we'll be there. This is exactly what you two need. Rekindle that romance. Maybe reconsider what we talked about at the club. I let her ramble about grandchildren while I mentally added her to my guest list. Otis's parents, his senior partners from the firm, our closest couple friends from Naperville, and, of course, his Milwaukee family who had no idea his Chicago family existed. The dinner reservation was for 7. I confirmed 23 guests. Gibson's was confused. "Mrs. Fletcher, your husband only booked for 2? But my credit card convinced them to rearrange." "It's a surprise," I said sweetly. "He'll be so shocked." Understatement of the century. I spent the next week in a strange state of calm. I'd heard about this. The eye of the hurricane. That peaceful center where everything becomes clear and you stop feeling and start executing. Otis noticed the change. "You seem different," he said one morning, watching me make coffee. "Different how?" "I don't know. Lighter? Happier?" I kissed his cheek. "Maybe I'm just excited for our anniversary. 8 years. That's something worth celebrating, don't you think?" He smiled. Relaxed. Stupid. Trusting Otis. "Yeah, it is. I made us reservations at Gibson's." "I know. I saw the confirmation. It's perfect." What he didn't know, I'd also seen his text to Simone, telling her he'd have to miss their usual weekend because of our anniversary dinner, promising to make it up to her and Emma the following weekend. What he really didn't know, there was no following weekend in his future where he got to play daddy in Milwaukee. After November 15th, everyone would know everything. I spent hours crafting the perfect email to send to all guests the day of the dinner. "Dear friends and family, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate 8 years of marriage and some unexpected revelations. Dress code, semi-formal. Bring an open mind and perhaps your phone to document this historic occasion. Dinner starts at 7 p.m. sharp. Please arrive on time. The guest of honor will be very surprised. With love and anticipation, Astrid." Vague enough to not raise alarms, specific enough to make people curious. Perfect. I even hired a photographer, told him it was a surprise anniversary party, and I wanted every moment documented. He thought it was romantic. I thought it was evidence. The week before the dinner, Otis came home with flowers. Roses, 24 of them. "For my beautiful wife," he said, kissing me. 8 years, and I still feel like the luckiest man alive. I put them in water. Smiled. Thought about how he'd probably bought Simone flowers, too, with our money, from our joint account. "I feel pretty lucky, too," I said. "This anniversary is going to be one neither of us forgets." "I love you, Astrid." The words hung in the air between us. I looked at this man. My husband, Emma's father, Simone's basically husband, and wondered if he'd ever actually loved me, or if I'd just been the legal wife while Simone was the emotional one. "I love you too," I said, because I wasn't tipping my hand yet. That weekend, while Otis was at a client meeting, actually Emma's kindergarten fall festival, according to the tracker I'd put on his phone, I went to the bank. Our joint accounts held substantial savings, 8 years of my top-tier real estate commissions, and his architect's salary added up. I opened a separate account, transferred exactly half of our liquid assets into it. Not a penny more, not a penny less. 50-50, perfectly legal, completely within my rights as a joint account holder. Then I called the best divorce attorney in DuPage County. "Marianne, it's Astrid Mercer. Remember that consultation we had last year when I was asking about a client's situation?" "Of course. What can I do for you?" Turns out I wasn't asking for a client. She laughed. Dark, knowing. "When do you want to come in? How's Monday?" "I'll make time." The meeting took 3 hours. I showed her everything. Marcus's file, the tax returns, the bank statements, the photos. She sat back in her leather chair and whistled. "This is comprehensive. I'm a thorough person. I can see that. Okay, here's what we're looking at. You've got grounds for divorce based on adultery, obviously. But the tax fraud angle is interesting. If you report him to the IRS, that's a whole other level of consequences. His career could be over. What if I just want him to suffer socially?" She smiled. Actually smiled. "Then you're going to love what I'm about to tell you. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can impact property division and alimony. With his income and the fact that he used marital assets to support another household, you're looking at a very favorable settlement. Plus, she tapped the tax documents. If this becomes public knowledge, his reputation is destroyed. In a profession that relies on trust and integrity, he's done. How public are we talking? Court proceedings are public record. If you file citing specific instances of financial fraud within the marriage, anyone can access those documents, press included, if they're interested. I thought about Otis's position at his firm, the partnership he'd just made, the country club membership, his standing in Naperville's tight-knit professional community. File the papers, I said, but don't serve them until after November 15th. That's oddly specific. I like to time things perfectly. She looked at me with something like admiration. You know what? I think you're going to be just fine. Better than fine. I'm going to be spectacular. The day before our anniversary, I got my hair done. Nails. Full makeup trial. Bought a new dress. Red, form-fitting. The kind that said, confident woman about to ruin lives. Spent more on it than I'd spent on any single item of clothing in years. Worth every penny. Otis noticed that evening. Wow, you look incredible. Is that for tomorrow? For tomorrow, I confirmed. I want everything to be perfect. It will be. Just you and me, celebrating 8 years. Oh, honey, I said, my smile sharp as broken glass. It's going to be so much more than that. He laughed, oblivious. You sound mysterious. Life's full of mysteries. Some of us are just better at solving them than others. That night I barely slept. Not from nerves, from anticipation. Every detail was in place, every guest confirmed. Simone thought she was coming to celebrate Otis's promotion. Otis's parents thought they were celebrating our anniversary. His colleagues thought they were networking at a social event. Only I knew what was really happening. The collision of two worlds, the exposure of 8 years of lies, and the public destruction of a man who thought he was clever enough to have it all. November 15th dawned cold and clear. Perfect weather for watching a life implode. I texted Simone that morning. So excited for tonight. Otis is going to be thrilled to see you and Emma. She responded, We're so excited. Emma wore her favorite purple dress. She can't wait to show her daddy. Purple. Emma's favorite color, according to Marcus's file. I put on my red dress, looked in the mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked powerful, dangerous, free. Let's burn it all down, I said to my reflection. Time to show Otis Fletcher what happens when you underestimate your wife. Gibson's Steakhouse has excellent lighting. I mention this because it meant every face, every reaction, every moment of dawning horror was perfectly illuminated when Otis walked into his surprise party at 7:15. I'd arrived early, 6:30, to personally greet each guest. Patricia and Richard came first. Patricia already tearing up about finally having a real celebration for our marriage. Otis's senior partners arrived next, making small talk about the firm's upcoming projects. Our Naperville couple friends showed up with wine and congratulations. Then, at 6:55, Simone walked in holding Emma's hand. She was prettier in person, dark hair, genuine smile, completely oblivious to the bomb about to detonate. Emma wore purple, just like she'd said. She had Otis's eyes, his smile. Undeniable proof in a kindergartner's body. Astrid? Simone approached, hand extended. I'm Simone Laurent. This is Emma. Thank you so much for inviting us. I shook her hand. Looked down at Emma, who was clutching a drawing. Of course she was. Welcome. Otis is going to be so surprised to see you both. We don't usually get to come to his Chicago events, Simone said, completely earnest. He's always so worried about mixing professional and personal life. But for his partnership announcement, I couldn't miss it. Partnership announcement, I repeated, my smile sharp. Right, that. Patricia materialized at my elbow. Astrid, dear, who are your friends? The moment froze. Simone looked at Patricia. Patricia looked at Emma. Emma looked up at all of us with those Fletcher eyes. I'm Simone, she said, still clueless. I work with Otis in Milwaukee. This is my daughter, Emma. Patricia's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, horror. She'd been asking for grandchildren for 8 years. She was currently staring at one. "Your daughter," Patricia repeated slowly. "She's 5, Simone said proudly, completely missing the tension. "Otis adores her. He's such an amazing father figure." Father figure, not father. Figure. I watched Patricia's face pale, watched the mental math happening behind her eyes, watched the exact moment she realized her son wasn't the man she thought he was. "Excuse me," Patricia whispered, grabbing Richard's arm. They retreated to a corner, whispering furiously. Simone looked concerned. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's about to be very okay," I said. "Why don't you and Emma have a seat? Otis should be here any minute." I'd timed it perfectly. Otis thought we had a 7:30 reservation. I'd told everyone else 7, which meant 15 minutes of pre-party mingling where Simone could introduce herself to everyone as Otis's Milwaukee colleague, and Emma could show people her drawing while our friends slowly realized something was very, very wrong. The photographer was capturing everything, every confused face, every whispered conversation, every moment of growing tension. At 7:14, my phone buzzed. Otis, texting from the valet. "Just parking. Can't wait to see you, beautiful." I replied, "Same, honey. I have some people here who can't wait to see you, too." Then I positioned myself by the entrance. The maitre d' knew his cue. Otis walked in at 7:15, flowers in hand, looking unfairly handsome in his suit. His smile was genuine. The smile of a man who thought he'd successfully maintained a double life for 6 years and was about to have a romantic anniversary dinner. That smile lasted approximately 4 seconds. His eyes swept the room, registered the crowd, found his parents, found his colleagues, found Simone and Emma. The flowers hit the floor. "Surprise," I said sweetly. The color drained from his face so fast I worried he might pass out, but that would have been too easy. "Astrid, what?" His voice cracked. "What is this?" "Our anniversary party, honey. 8 years. I invited everyone important to you. Everyone." I gestured broadly. "Your parents, your partners from work, our friends, and of course your Milwaukee colleagues. I thought it was time everyone met." Simone stood up, confused. "Otis? What's going on? Why didn't you tell me your wife was throwing you a party?" The word wife dropped like a grenade. Several things happened at once. Patricia gasped. One of our Naperville friends, Sarah, bless her, said, "Wait, wife?" Otis's senior partner, Thomas, set down his whiskey. Emma tugged on Simone's hand, asking, "Mommy, why does that lady know Daddy?" Simone's face went through its own journey of expressions. Confusion, realization, devastation. "Wife?" she repeated, looking at me. "You're his, but he's—" She turned to Otis. "You told me you were divorced. You said your ex-wife lived in California." "You said—" "I am his wife," I confirmed, my voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. "Current wife. Very much not divorced. Very much not living in California. Living in Naperville, actually, in the house we bought together 5 years ago. The house he comes home to every other week between his Milwaukee visits." Otis looked like a man trying to decide which fire to put out first. "Simone, I can explain." "Explain?" Simone's voice rose. "Explain? You've been lying to me for 6 years? You're married? Daddy?" Emma's small voice cut through the chaos. "Why is everyone yelling?" And there it was, the word that changed everything. "Daddy?" Patricia repeated, staring at Otis. "She called you Daddy." The silence was deafening. Otis opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. What could he possibly say? "Yes," I said, filling the void. "Emma is Otis's daughter, his 5-year-old daughter, who he's been supporting financially using our joint bank accounts, who he's claimed as a dependent on our tax returns, which I signed, by the way, without knowing she existed, who he sees every other weekend when he tells me he's working." Thomas, the senior partner, stood up. "You've been claiming a dependent without your wife's knowledge? That's tax fraud," Richard said quietly, his lawyer brain kicking in. "Otis, that's federal tax fraud." Otis finally found his voice. "Dad, it's not— I can fix this." Fix this? Patricia's voice could have cut steel. You have a child we didn't know about. A grandchild. You've been lying to everyone. Simone was crying now. We had a ceremony. In Vegas. You said we were married. Symbolically. I provided helpfully. Not legally. Legally, he's been married to me for 8 years. But I understand the confusion. Otis is very good at making promises he can't keep. The photographer was getting gold. Every tear. Every grimace. Every moment of Otis's carefully constructed life collapsing like a building with no foundation. I want to go home, Emma said, tugging Simone's hand. Mommy, I want to go home. And there, right there, was when my revenge stopped feeling good and started feeling necessary. This little girl, who'd done nothing wrong, was watching her world implode because her father was a coward. Simone, I said, my voice gentler, take Emma outside. There's a lounge area. This doesn't need to be her memory of tonight. Simone looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Then she scooped up Emma and fled. The moment they were gone, I turned back to Otis. Your daughter doesn't need to see this, but everyone else does. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo album I'd prepared, started showing it around. Bank statements, tax returns, photos from Simone's Instagram, credit card receipts from Milwaukee, the paper trail of an entire second life. 6 years, I said conversationally, like I was discussing the weather. 6 years of lying, of stealing from our joint accounts to fund his other family, of claiming dependent care credits on our taxes, of telling me he was working while he was playing house in Wisconsin. Thomas looked sick. Otis? Is this true? Otis's mouth opened and closed like a fish. It's complicated. It's really not, I interrupted. You're a liar, a cheat, and potentially a federal tax criminal. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Astrid, please, Otis finally managed. Can we talk about this privately? Privately? I laughed. Actually laughed. You mean like how you privately started a second family? Like how you privately drained our savings? Like how you privately made me look like an idiot for 8 years? I never meant to hurt you. You meant to lie to me. The hurt was just a bonus. Patricia stood up, her voice shaking. I didn't raise you to be this person. Mom, don't. She held up her hand. I have a granddaughter I've never met because you were too cowardly to tell the truth. That poor woman outside thinks she's been married to you. That child, her voice broke. That child is going to grow up knowing her father is a liar. Richard put his arm around Patricia, looked at his son with something like disgust. We're leaving. Don't call us until you've figured out how to be honest. They left. Our friends left. Thomas and the other partners left, but not before Thomas said quietly, Don't come into the office Monday. We'll be in touch. One by one, the room emptied, until it was just me, Otis, and the photographer, who was packing up his equipment with visible discomfort. Got everything? I asked him. Yes, ma'am. I'll have the photos to you by tomorrow. Perfect. Thanks. He left. Now it was just us. Otis looked at me with something that might have been remorse. Astrid, I'm divorcing you, I said simply. My attorney has papers ready to file. You'll be served Monday. I'm keeping the house, half of everything in our accounts, which I already moved this morning, and I'm reporting the tax fraud to the IRS. You don't have to do that. No, I don't have to. I want to. Because you know what I realized, Otis. You didn't just lie to me. You stole from me. You used my money, my trust, my life to build something with someone else. And that little girl out there? She deserves better than a father who taught her that love comes with deception. I do love her. I know you do. Which makes this worse. You chose to love her from a foundation of lies. You chose to make her existence a secret. You chose this. I picked up my purse, looked at my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, one last time. Happy anniversary, Otis. I hope it was everything you didn't expect. I walked out of Gibson's Steakhouse and found Simone in the lounge, Emma asleep in her lap. I'm sorry, I said, for all of this. You didn't deserve it. Neither did she. Simone looked up, mascara running. Did you know? Before tonight? 2 weeks ago, Found a drawing in his car. I had no idea he was married, I swear. He told me, I know what he told you. He's good at telling people what they want to hear. I handed her a card. That's my divorce attorney. She's excellent. You're going to need someone to help you navigate custody and child support. Tell her I sent you. She'll take care of you. Why are you helping me? Because we're not enemies. We're both women who believed the same liar. The difference is, you have a daughter who needs stability. And despite everything, I'm not cruel. I left her there and walked out into the Chicago night. November, cold, clear sky. My breath fogging in the air. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Thomas. Just want you to know. Partnerships revoked. Effective immediately. Guy's a liability. You did the right thing. I smiled. Texted back. Thanks for coming tonight. Another buzz. This one from Marcus. I assume it went well? Better than well? It went perfectly. The photographer sent me a preview by midnight. Otis's face when he walked in. The moment of realization. Simone's tears. Patricia's horror. Emma's confusion. I saved every single photo. Not to look at again. I wasn't that vindictive. But to have. To prove this happened. To remind myself that I'd been brave enough to blow up my own life to find a better one. 6 months after the Gibson Steakhouse massacre. Yes, that's what our mutual friends call it now. I sold a $12 million estate in Oak Brook and celebrated with champagne that didn't taste like compromise. The divorce finalized in March. I got the house, 70% of our assets, thank you, adultery clause, and the Tesla, because apparently judges don't look kindly on men who fund secret families with marital money. Otis got a studio apartment in Aurora, a payment plan with the IRS, and a reputation that follows him like a bad smell. His architectural license is currently under review. The firm let him go 2 weeks after our anniversary dinner. Turns out, moral turpitude is actually written into partnership agreements. Who knew? Thomas sent me a fruit basket and a note that said, "Thank you for the heads up. We dodged a bullet." I sent back a bottle of wine and a card that said, "You're welcome. Next time, do better background checks." The IRS investigation is ongoing. Turns out claiming a secret dependent while using business deductions for personal housing is exactly as illegal as Marcus said it would be. Otis is looking at penalties that make his student loans look like pocket change. I'd feel bad, but I'm too busy being vindicated. Patricia calls me every Sunday. We have brunch. We talk about real estate and her book club and carefully avoid mentioning her son until the second mimosa. When she inevitably says something like, "I don't know where we went wrong with him," and I pat her hand and say, "You didn't. He went wrong all by himself." She met Emma last month. Simone agreed to it after months of therapy and legal negotiations. Patricia cried. Richard bought Emma a teddy bear the size of a small car. They're building a relationship with their granddaughter, slowly, carefully, trying to give her something stable in the wreckage her father created. Simone and I don't talk often, but we're cordial. She thanked me for the attorney referral. Marianne got her a custody arrangement that actually works and child support that Otis can't dodge. She's dating again. Some guy from her CrossFit gym who doesn't have any secret wives. The bar is literally on the ground, but at least she's stepping over it. Emma's in therapy. She's doing okay, according to Simone. Better than okay, actually. Kids are resilient in ways adults aren't. She'll grow up knowing her father's flawed, but she'll also grow up knowing that sometimes the truth, however painful, is better than a comfortable lie. As for Otis, last I heard, he's working for a small firm in Joliet, making half what he used to, living in a place where the walls are so thin he can hear his neighbors argue about whose turn it is to buy toilet paper. He tried calling me once, 2 months after the divorce finalized. I let it go to voicemail. He said he was sorry, that he never meant for things to end this way, that he hoped someday I could forgive him. I deleted it. Not because I'm angry, anger requires caring, but because forgiveness isn't something he gets to ask for. It's something I give to myself, and it doesn't include him in the equation. My therapist, yes, I got one, because even revenge-fueled real estate agents need someone to talk to, says I'm doing remarkably well with processing the betrayal. I told her I processed it by blowing up my husband's life in a public restaurant. She said that was unconventional but effective. I like her. The TikTok video I posted about the whole debacle went viral. 47 million views and counting. I kept it vague enough to avoid legal issues, but specific enough that everyone got the point. Don't underestimate the wife. The comments are half people calling me a savage, and half people asking for advice on how to catch their own cheating spouses. I've become an accidental influencer for scorned women everywhere. Someone even asked me to write a book. I'm considering it. Working title: The Second Family Diaries, A Guide to Strategic Revenge and Real Estate. My agent thinks it's gold. I think it's therapeutic. Here's what I learned from 8 years of marriage to a man who was only half mine. Trust isn't something you give freely. It's something people earn and then prove they deserve every single day. Otis stopped earning it years ago. I just didn't know I should have been keeping score. I learned that being understanding and accommodating isn't the same as being a partner. Sometimes it's just being a doormat with good communication skills. I learned that work trips should probably involve actual work evidence. I learned that my gut knew something was wrong years before my brain caught up, and I should have listened to it. But mostly, I learned that I don't need someone else to complete my life. I just need someone who won't actively sabotage it with secret children and fraudulent tax returns. I'm dating now. Casually. A guy named Marcus. No, not the PI. Different Marcus. Who owns a bookstore in downtown Naperville and has never been to Milwaukee in his life. He thinks my divorce story is intense but kind of badass. He's not wrong. We're taking it slow. I'm taking everything slow these days. When you've spent 8 years sprinting through a marriage that was going nowhere, slow feels revolutionary. The house in Naperville is mine now. All mine. I repainted the bedroom, covered up the sage green Otis picked with a deep navy that makes me feel like I'm sleeping in the ocean. I replaced the furniture, burned the sheets, started over in the same space, but made it different. Made it mine. Some nights I stand in the kitchen, the one with marble countertops and a farmhouse sink, and think about the woman who found a crayon drawing 6 months ago. She was scared and hurt and didn't know how her story would end. I wish I could tell her it ends with her standing in her own kitchen, drinking wine she actually likes, planning a vacation to Greece she doesn't have to clear with anyone. I wish I could tell her that the pain doesn't last forever, but the lesson does. People ask me if I regret the public spectacle, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no, absolutely not. Otis spent 6 years making me look like a fool in private. I spent one night making him look like a fraud in public. Seems like a fair trade to me. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. With better lighting and a videographer instead of just a photographer. Do I recommend it? Only if you have a detailed paper trail, a good attorney, and the emotional capacity to watch a man realize his entire life was built on a foundation of lies while you sip a Manhattan and smile for the camera. Here's the thing about revenge. It doesn't fix the hurt. It doesn't undo the betrayal. But it does give you something. A moment where you take back the narrative, where you stop being the victim of someone else's story and become the author of your own. And sometimes, that's enough. I'm not the same woman who cleaned out a Tesla and found a drawing that changed everything. I'm harder now, sharper, less willing to accept easy answers or convenient lies. But I'm also freer, lighter, more myself than I've been in years. 8 years of marriage taught me what I don't want. 6 months of divorce taught me what I deserve. Turns out, I deserve everything Otis was too cowardly to give me. Honesty, respect, and a life that doesn't require a PI to verify. So here's to finding crayon drawings that destroy your marriage. Here's to private investigators who do their jobs well. Here's to divorce attorneys who actually give a damn. And here's to women who decide that being underestimated is the last mistake someone will make. Because the best revenge isn't living well. It's living loudly, unapologetically, and in a way that makes your ex-husband's new studio apartment feel exactly as small as his character.